So I got to meet Joanne Barda about a week and a half ago for the very first time at her house in Forest Grove, where she talked about how to pack a kayak for overnight travel. And it was unbelievable. My mind was blown. I learned so much. So we have Joanne Barda here tonight. And Joanne discovered sea kayaking and traditional kayak building 22 years ago and was instantly hooked. She has built one stitch and glue kayak and two skin on frame kayaks and teaches Greenland paddle carving with Don Beal. She is a Kayak USA member and is taught at several Kayak USA events and is taught for the Portland Kayak Company in Portland. She loves guiding others to discover the wonder and beauty of the outdoors through kayaking and kayak camping. Croatia is one of her favorite kayak and camping spots. Neato. Joanne enjoys gardening and volunteering with a disaster relief organization rebuilding houses lost to wildfires and other natural disasters. She lives in Forest Grove with her husband, cat, dog, and a few kayaks. We also have with us tonight Paul Steinberg. So Paul started kayaking in October of 2009. He drove down to Brian Schultz's Cape Falcon workshop in Nehalem and was immediately smitten with boats that he offered and had the opportunity to craft his own. He built an F1 and a Greenland paddle with Brian and never looked back. Paul says, I subsequently fell in love with paddling in the Pacific Northwest. The thick surf and multiple lines of breaking waves off almost every beach, the basalt headlands, the heavy forests, and the heavy weather. There's something intoxicating about visiting these places in a small boat. Right on. Paul says, when not kayaking, I can be found lazing about and drinking coffee. If you're curious to read more about my indolence, you can find it on my personal blog, which is torsorotation.com. So I'm sure you'll have plenty of questions. Save those to the end. And please make welcome Joanne and Paul.
Well, thank you for that and welcome. So I am Joanne Barda, and I am just curious, how many of you have been to STIKS? A few of you. Well, there's a lot of opportunity for more of you. And this is?
Hi, I'm Paul Steinberg.
You want to say anything more about yourself?
I'll say something in the context of STIKS. I went to my first STIKS many years ago, and I just fell in love. I guess I fall in love easily. I fell in love with STIKS immediately. It felt very much like I was coming home to my family, and I immediately wanted to do more and more STIKS, and finally just sort of worked my way in. So now I find myself here with Joanne and Dawn working on getting STIKS back up and running again.
Thank you. Next slide. Oh, wait, doesn't this one, don't you, or you have to do this, right? Okay. So you might wonder, what does STIKS stand for? And it stands for the South Sound Traditional Inuit Kayak Symposium. The first STIKS happened in 2002 at Toano State Park in Washington, and it was a gathering of friends who wanted to share what they knew with each other and learn from each other, much in the way Greenlanders still do today. So this involved parents and kids and friends who became friends. So this STIKS continued until COVID shut it down for a couple years. And then we're looking at reimagining and rebuilding STIKS for 2025 and beyond.
And we're going to keep coming back to this again and again. So we're here not just to introduce STIKS to those folks who don't know, or even just to announce the fact that it's coming back for those who are, past attendees, but we're really trying to solicit interest in helping out with STIKS. And that can be, if you're coming as an attendee, that's fabulous. But STIKS is a community-run event, and we're really hoping that people will be interested in engaging with us and working to help put STIKS back on the calendar again. So traditional Inuit in the STIKS title refers to our mission to honor, celebrate, and teach the native roots of our discipline. And we're talking about with kayaks, the paddles, and also all the tools and techniques that surround kayaking, all of which are the product of sort of circumpolar Arctic culture, which developed skin-on-frame boats and developed the techniques which we use every day. And it's important, I think, that we acknowledge the fact that our sport, its roots are very much a native creation. And at STIKS, we're not trying to become native kayakers in any way, but we're trying to really educate and honor the fact that that everything that we love so much owes its inception to these Arctic people.
Thank you.
Oh, we're on the STIKS family slide.
Oh,
that is slide number 4.
So we're not just looking to introduce you to that, but we're looking for helpers, and those helpers can be everything from helping Elizabeth with the kids track next June to helping with registration, being a safety boater, and other mentors.
And you don't have to be an expert to help at STIKS. I'm not really an expert in anything, truthfully. There's people who do everything much better than I do. There's rollers that you wouldn't believe. There's master builders like Dawn and who are just, amazing. But there's a place for everybody. And it's very much a community effort.
Next slide.
So we're on slide number 5. So we're going to drill down a lot into what exactly is STIKS, what we do there, and the different kinds of classes and things. But before we do that, we want to take a slight step back a few tens and thousands of years. Because as we mentioned before, what we do at STIKS owes its birth to the peoples of the Arctic who developed these technologies.
Next slide.
Slide number 6. So Arctic peoples have lived in the circumpolar regions for, the numbers vary, at least the last 30,000 years. And they're not one people. There's many peoples in the Arctic, and they each have their own distinct culture, they have their own distinct languages, and their own distinct traditions. But they do share something, and that is the need to live and thrive in a very challenging environment. The Arctic is, as get from the name, cold. There's very cold winters, there's very little vegetation, but there is a very rich fauna that lives in the seas and to an extent on land as well. And your very survival depends on being able to exploit those kind of sources of food and sustenance. And to do that, you need to be able to get on the water, you need to be able to hunt and move effectively across water.
So with the barren interiors, but rich oceans, these people thrived and survived. They had the challenge to build their kayaks and to live depended upon gathering of wood that was driftwood. And so they used this driftwood to make the frames for their kayaks and then used animal skins to skin them.
So skin boats were ubiquitous across the circumpolar region. We sometimes use the term kayak loosely, but the kayak is a specific word, was developed by specific people. So it would be better to say skin boats because almost all people use the skin boats as a solution. As Joanne mentioned, it's based on driftwood, and then the animal skins, which were actually much more plentiful than wood, were used to build the skin of the boat and actually provided strength by holding the wooden frame together.
Next slide.
This is slide number 9.
So the ingredients, the skills, and the tools were very important, precious to these people. So
one slide.
The skins, mostly from seals, were used to skin these boats, but the knowledge that was handed down generation to generation was very, very valuable. That a mistake in construction really could cost someone their life. And because these ingredients, the ingredients for making the kayaks were scarce, you can see, if you look in the upper right-hand picture, you can see a picture of a builder using a scarf joint to join two pieces of wood.
Yeah, so it's easy to think that they found just the right pieces that would just magically appear so you could do an 18-foot long boat, but you couldn't. It was all driftwood. And as Joanne mentioned, over a period of sometimes a year, they would collect and assemble all the pieces they needed to build their boats, and then put them together by carving the wood into the right shape, and then tying the different pieces of wood together using both complex joints called scarf joints, and then fastening them with animal sinew.
Next slide.
And it's also easy to think that they just paddled kayaks, but as I've already mentioned, they didn't. The boats differed widely depending on who made them, the materials they had at hand, and the different uses they had for their kayaks. So we go to REI, or we go to Alder Creek, or we used to go to Portland Kayak of blessed memory, and buy our boats, but they didn't. They had to make them, and the boats not only reflected the different tools they used, the different raw products they used, but it was also very much a reflection of themselves. Sometimes it's easy to think that everything that Native people did was utilitarian, and it was just in order to solve a problem. And it was, of course, that's the most important thing, get food for your family, but it's also a reflection of their identity. And boats did vary widely. Even within the same community, different kayak makers would build very different boats. And and when you look at them and you examine them, you see it's not always just a utilitarian solution they're coming up with, but it's an aesthetic expression that they've created. And we're going to come back a number of times to Harvey Golden, who is a great kayak historian, and we have his books here. But if you talk to Harvey and you look at his boats, you realize just how much of the soul of each individual maker entered into their boats, and how much it informs the boat's design and beauty.
Next slide, please. So boats could be the design and the construction of that varied with the people. As you can see here, that here is an example of a bidarka, which is a Russian word. Greenlanders call this an ikiak. And these were used for hunting otters primarily. So they were designed to go very, very fast and very straight. And they transported hunters and their otters that they hunted all up and down the West Coast, and then traded them with Russians.
So it's actually it's an Aleutian boat. This is a boat from the Aleutian Islands off the coast of Alaska, intersecting with Siberia, and the bidarka, which is a term we often use, is actually not the term for the boat. Bidarka is a Russian term, means little boat, but as Joanna mentioned, it's called an ikiaks. And not only was this boat, it was a boat developed by the Aleutian Islanders, but it also reflects how boat design and boat use changed, especially in this case in contact with colonizers. So the Russians came, they colonized the Aleutian Islands. It was disastrous for the Aleutian Islanders, and they really didn't survive. The culture didn't survive contact over the centuries with Russia. But during the time when the Russians were colonizers of that area, they would take the Aleutian Islanders and often kidnap them and put them in boats, and they'd sail all up and down the West Coast from Alaska all the way down to Baja in order to kill and capture the sea otter pelts. And the boats changed during that time. So they were always optimized for being a fast boat, but they grew even because all they needed to be now was super fast. And they became modified so they could hold different numbers of people in them. So you could have dual paddlers and maybe a specialized person in there getting the sea otters. They were also used inter-island in order to take Russian dignitaries around. So in this picture here, which was in the Willamette waterfront, you can see two stand-ins for Aleutian Islanders and a stand-in for a Russian dignitary there, and that's Jay Hutchins, if anybody here knows him, in the middle, playing that role.
We might also mention that Harvey Golden is the world authority on traditional watercraft. And if you're interested, we have both of his books here, The Kayaks of Alaska and Kayaks of Greenland, for you to look at later.
Here's another example of how skin technology changed over time and in contact with different technologies. So this is also taken from Harvey's collection. This is a skin on frame boat. The people who built this boat probably built boats that we reference now more as kayaks. But this boat doesn't look much of anything like a kayak because its use model had changed. Instead of being a tool for chasing down sea otters or a tool for stalking seals, this was what's called a retrieval kayak. And as guns were introduced into native peoples, they could hunt from the shore. They could hunt seabirds from the shore, or they could hunt sea mammals directly from the shore at long distances and kill them, which before they had to be much closer. And you needed a boat, a specialized boat, to go out and retrieve what you've shot. And this is a boat that was developed in order as a retrieval boat, and they didn't have golden retrievers or Labradors, so this served quite well.
This next kayak is one that Harvey brought to STIKS many years ago. It is very, very long, very, very skinny, very, very tippy. And this boat was designed to be used in hunting caribou as they were swimming to cross rivers. And so the hunter needed to be able to paddle very quickly to lance the caribou. And I think you had a story about that.
Well, yeah, the caribou would cross the river, and the hunters would essentially ambush them and lance them as they were swimming. Caribou would move very quickly, are difficult to hunt on land, but on water they're vulnerable. And according to Harvey, there was, if you were the first one to reach, and your lance would reach the caribou, you had got maybe a better portion or a more choice portion of the caribou. So speed was optimized everything else. And Harvey did bring these to STIKS one year. And if this boat wasn't moving forward, it was tipping over. It was like a very, a very technical surf ski. You had to just keep paddling forward. It takes a ton of skill. And I would argue here, debatably, that the form here is not totally functional. It is functional. It's very thin and very fast. But these extravagant bow and stern pieces, you can use them to carry your boat, yes, but you don't need such a long bow and stern piece to carry a boat. There was an idea of design. There was an idea of something else beyond the pure functionality that was built into this boat. And it's still a beautiful, beautiful craft. And you'll be able to see, I think Ken Sund is organizing a trip to actually visit Harvey's museum up in Astoria in the next couple of weeks, I believe. Is that correct?
Yes.
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 So I'd highly recommend it. It's really marvelous to go see what Harvey has been able to do with creating these kayak replicas.
Next slide, please.
Oh, it's my slide. So let's go back to the kayaks that we're familiar with. The kayaks we celebrate at STIKS and the kayaks we use every day are the product of the Greenland people. And they were used specifically as a stalking platform for sea mammals. We've seen boats now that have been used to get somewhere quickly or to go long distances like the Bidarkas, or even to go out and get your duck like the retrieval kayak. But the kayaks that we use were in their inception platforms to stalk sea mammals. And the word kayak actually means man's boat, because within that culture, it was the men who did the hunting, and this was their boats.
Next slide. And this boat here is the umiak. Translated means the women's boat. So the umiak was used to carry possessions and families from one area to another, for traveling, for visiting other people. And you might think of it as like the minivan of the Arctic. You can see in this next slide, well, this slide and the next slide, a mast with a sail. And what I'd like to emphasize here is how incredibly smart, clever, ingenious, and resourceful these people were and are to use everything that was available to them to create these kayaks and umiaks. It was built just a lot like a kayak in that it's a wooden frame with animal skins stitched over to make the skin on frame. They also could use these umiaks to transport kayaks. So
One more slide.
a very resourceful, oh, how about the next one?
Next one.
Sorry,
There we
that
go.
one. So you could use these kayaks to carry a whole lot of stuff and people. Next slide.
So as we mentioned, the kayaks that we use, the kayaks that actually bear the name kayak and were developed by the Greenland people, were used to stalk sea mammals, particularly seals. And that needed to be done in absolute silence and in absolute stealth. And so the kayaks that we use were that was the purpose they were created for. As we know, you can't store a lot of stuff in them. They're not like a big canoe. In fact, most Greenlanders stored everything they needed on the deck, which goes a lot against what we're always taught: keep your decks clean. But they couldn't, and the decks were used to store and to have at hand all the hunting materials they needed. And this is a great example of a hunting kayak. You can see in the forefront there's a small dish, so to speak, platform where the harpoon line was coiled.
Called a line rack.
And behind the paddler is an avatak, which is an inflated seal skin.
This one's made of neoprene.
This is from the neoprene seal, a more modern seal. But once the the harpoon impacted into the seal, Joanne will demonstrate later, tip falls off, most of the shaft falls away, the cutting edge of the harpoon stays in the seal, and this would keep the seal from being able to dive and allow the hunter to go and dispatch the seal. In front of the paddler, you see what looks like a tiny sail, but it's not. It's actually a blind. The seals were very, very, aware of being predators. It wasn't only people that hunted them. Everybody hunted a seal. They're kind of the bottom of that part of the food chain there. So they're very wary, and everything that could be done to optimize the stalk was used, and that blind obscured some of the seal from seeing what was coming at him. Also, kind of interesting, this is a rather late picture, and underneath the sail, you can see a little structure poking out from in front of it. That was actually a holster for a rifle. So this picture represents a bit of a transitional period. They're still using the harpoon, but they're also carrying a rifle.
Next slide. So hunting kayaks are not easy to use. They can be narrow, they can be tippy, and it takes a lot of skill. So these skills were taught from a very early age, and indeed at STIKS, we love to help children learn. Children as young as 4 come and they learn skills at STIKS, and we have smaller kayaks and appropriately sized paddles for them to learn.
So we're continuing that tradition.
Absolutely. Oh, this is you.
So another key component of the polar technology was the paddle. And we're used to calling the paddles our long, skinny paddles as Greenland paddles, which they are, but thinking that describes the entirety of the paddles of that region, but it's actually not true. This is from Harvey's collection of replica paddles, and you can see they came in all different shapes and sizes. Some that seem like the middle one absurdly long, and if you've ever tried to use that thing, it's just hard even to balance it, let alone paddle with it. But it was a paddle that was used, paddle design that was used. There's paddles that look very much like what we call Euro paddles, with the 2 large blades on the end. That was a part of their paddle toolkit as well for the circumpolar people. And paddles which we would identify more as canoe paddles were also used by them as well. The paddles on the right are the Greenland paddles. You can see some here, and these are the paddles that we use at those of us who use them day to day, and this is what we teach with at STIKS.
So as Paul was saying, we use these paddles day to day. They were developed by the Inuit, the Greenland seal hunters. They are relatively short. They're sized differently for each paddler and each boat that you use. But in terms of rules and black and white about what is right and what is wrong, there's not a lot of that. There's a whole lot of gray area. And so one of the joys of paddling with a Greenland paddle is finding that size and shape and the wood that resonates with you.
And the thin blades of the Greenland paddle gave the seal hunter what he needed the most, which was a quiet paddle. An expert seal hunter had a specific stroke that he could use when stalking, so that not even a drop of water would drip from the tip of his paddle. He had to control each drop because the drops of water were enough to alert the seal that he was coming. They also gave, and they give us, and they gave their hunters a lot of breadth for different kinds of strokes. They could use long sliding strokes. They could extend the whole paddle in the water. They could change things up when they were needed to turn or do directional strokes. They're really, really, if you haven't paddled with them, they're really wonderful tools to use for paddling. And again, that's what we're going to be exposing people to at STIKS. And they're also great for rolling. So a lot of us, rolling is what we're after. We want to be able to roll our kayaks, and it's hard. And even when we get our roll, it's not always perfect. A Greenland paddle really helps you learn how to roll. And really, at the end of the day, if you decide, doesn't matter what paddles you go back to using, the kind of techniques we teach at STIKS are going to help you become a better paddler, no matter what your equipment is.
Next slide. So here, I think I'm going to I'm going to talk you can get my harpoon. So the reason why we talk so much about hunting and hunting caribou and hunting seals is that was their food and that was their clothes, right? So they made clothes out of the skins. They ate, like seals were what hamburger are to some of us, right? So being a good hunter made the difference between being wealthy and being poor or
dead.
Starving to death. So I was going to show you real quickly about our harpoon. I don't know how this is going. We didn't practice.
We didn't practice, but we're handing this junk off.
So, so here's our harpoon. And when you're in the water and you throw this harpoon, it comes off of the Norsack and it goes up in the air. And with skill and power and maybe a little luck, the tip, which this is not real, on a real one would have a sharp blade, would impale itself into the seal, and then this part would float away. This part was also connected to a long line, which you can see on the line rack of the hunter. And then that line was connected to the avatak here. You had to be really skilled and you had to practice this. You can have a chance to practice this, not with a real live harpoon with a blade on the end, but with one of these practice ones into a hula hoop in the water and see if you can make it and gain an appreciation for just how much skill was involved. It's a full body workout. You will feel it in your abs, in your legs, in your arms.
It's also one of the most humbling things you can do. It's incredibly difficult. It's difficult even to throw the darn thing, let alone throw it any distance, let alone to get it to come anywhere near where you want it to get. It's hard. So we're going to get back to the present now, but we're going to just one last little lingering moment in the past here. And we were talking about how the kayaks we use are the product of these Arctic peoples and how they've come down to us. It's actually even in an interesting way, much more specific than that. The kayaks we use today are the product of one man, Emanuel Corneliusson, who was an Inuit hunter and kayak builder who was still active in the middle of the last century, built a boat, a specific boat, and he gave it to a man who was visiting that region.
So that man is Ken Taylor, and he went to Greenland in 1959. He lived.
One more picture.
One more picture. He lived among the Greenlanders there, and he learned to roll, which was something pretty new and exciting. He went back to Scotland and was like, hey, look at what I can do. He commissioned Emanuel Corneliusson to build this kayak and took that kayak back to Scotland with him. So this became the foundation.
And every kayak that we use is an elaboration on this boat. It's actually a fabulous story. And there's more. What?
You have to check on the phone. Did I do something wrong?
No?
Someone said it's back.
Sorry, it seems like it's all okay.
Okay.
Hopefully we're okay online. But here, coming back again to Harvey, and those of you who are going to go up with Ken to take a look at his collection, that specific boat, Harvey built an exact copy of it. And it's you can go up and see that boat today up at Harvey's Place in Astoria. And he's actually lent it before to various sticks. So you can actually once in a while have a chance to paddle the boat.
Well, so kayaking today is alive and very well in Greenland. There's an active club called Kanakatufiat, which is known worldwide. And one man,
Sorry.
Manasa Mathewson, began this club. So it's the goal is to keep these traditional paddling and techniques alive in their culture. Next slide. So Kayak USA is a chapter of Kanakatufiat, and there are 7 Kayak USA events around the country. STIKS is one of them. And we'd encourage you to consider becoming a Kayak USA member. Kayak USA has helped provide some of the gear for STIKS. They've assisted funding, bringing Greenlanders from Greenland to come to our event to help us learn more about their culture. And they paid for our ropes rig, and they've given a lot of other benefits. So you can look at, there's some journals over here that Kayak USA has printed. You can take a look at those. Next slide, please. Oh, that's you.
That's me. So that brings us back to STIKS. So STIKS, as Joanne mentioned, is a Kayak USA event. It is directly connected to Kanakatufiat in Greenland. So that's cool in and of itself, is that we are part of this movement of kayak revivalism that is run by folks in Greenland today. And we're going to now dive down a little bit into what STIK provides, talking about the classes, the mentors, the kind of community that's available there, as well as some of our other things that we're up to at STIKS.
Next slide. So mentors from around the country come to STIKS. We have 2 guest mentors this year. One is Dubside. He is the ambassador for the United States to Greenland. He's won many contests, rolling contests. He teaches rolling and ropes gymnastics. And the other we are super excited to have is another, we're just amazed that we have this resource right here in Portland, Oregon, is Brian Schultz of Cape Falcon Kayaks. Brian, what is so awesome about Brian is he understands traditional skills, and he has been able to make this bridge, taking traditional technology and using it for contemporary boat design today. So we're really happy to have them there. We want to remind you that we don't have instructors at STIKS. We have mentors. So we're all there to learn together. It's very much a community event. And I think that's kind of it for that slide. Oh, here.
So like I said, we're going to go in depth into what we offer. So again, I'm repeating myself, but we hope that you're going to leave today not only wanting to attend STIKS, but to become part of the STIKS, the revival in 2025. And STIKS is a wonderful place to learn rolling. I learned how to roll there. I learned how to roll from Joanne, as a matter of fact, who is a wonderful rolling teacher. We're going to learn about strokes and harpoons and rope gymnastics, which we'll describe in a moment.
So let's talk about rolling for a moment. We know, and if you don't know, now you do know, that rolling is the most effective, fastest, safest self-rescue that you have. So it's a great thing to know. Traditionally, if a kayak hunter went into the water, he would most likely die because the water is very, very cold. And so learning to roll was a big thing. But for us today, learning to roll is a confidence builder. I'm getting a little confused by all these slides here. It's a confidence builder. There are over 30 different ways to roll your kayak. And you would say, well, why do I only need one roll on one side? Well, that's not really true. So the purpose of learning rolls, whether they're like layback rolls or forward finishing rolls or Norsack rolls or hand rolls, the goal of this is to be comfortable under the water and confident that no matter what situation you're in, you could roll up and as well have some fun.
I'm waiting for you to say next slide.
Next slide.
Thank you.
Sure. Oh, this is me too.
Yes, it's you.
So again, I said we're fortunate to have Dubside coming. He's a Greenland champion. He will be teaching us about rolling, but also about ropes gymnastics. He is the creator of Conarec.com website and of Dubcast with Dubside, a podcast that he and Andrew Elizaga created. So Greenlanders also developed a variety of strokes. Again, strokes for long distances, strokes for in rougher water, all kinds of strokes and maneuvers. And at STIKS, you would learn these traditional strokes with a Greenland paddle.
But Joanne, what if I don't have a Greenland paddle?
Well, Don Beal has a little over 30 paddles that he will bring, and I can guarantee you we can find one that will fit you to use for the weekend. So,
Please.
So no matter if you take and use a Greenland paddle later or you use whatever, the skills that you learn at STIKS will help to make you a better paddler.
You can bring your regular European Warner paddle with you, but you got to keep it in the car. So, that's the only thing. We're not fanatics. It can stay in the car.
So we talked a little bit about harpoons before, but so there are harpoon throwing classes at STIKS. They're a little bit difficult, but you'll come away with a respect for the skill and for the work that they did to keep their families alive.
And it's also a great chance to test your combat role, because when you're leaning back to throw that harpoon and you're counterbalancing with your other hand and you release it, it's a tippy moment.
Challenges your balance.
Next slide. Got it. That's perfect.
So we talked a little bit about ropes gymnastics. So in the wintertime, hunters and kids looked for ways to stay in shape. And so these ropes strung out, they're about, I don't know, this far off the ground. They learned different ways of, it's essentially rolling their kayak on a rope indoors. So yeah, it tests your flexibility. It's a lot of fun. And generally kids are a lot better at this than adults are.
Yeah, folks in Greenland tended to keep their limberness and their weight down, and things that we don't do so well. So, but the ropes thing is a ton of fun, but it's also a challenge. And can kids love it because they can show up the adults. Okay, I'm changing slides. Oh, it's my slide. So we already mentioned that Brian is also going to be at at STIKS, and he's a master boat builder. He's been building boats. He's built hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of boats. And moreover, he has enabled people, regular people like me, who actually not a very good builder, to build beautiful boats. And well, you laugh, but Brian actually made a mistake, and Brian looked at it and scratched his head and he said, "I've never seen anybody make that mistake." But the boat was still great. That's the beauty of both Brian as a mentor and also the technology itself. It's very forgiving. We're not even 100% certain what Brian will be doing in STIKS. He may be building a whole boat. He may be just demonstrating building part of a boat. But it's a great chance to engage with him. And I highly encourage anybody to take the time to build a boat with Brian. It's absolutely fabulous.
Or at least come and see what he has to show you and inspire you for your DIY projects.
Email address in the chat for the list.
Yes. So you can put if you're wanting more information or to say I'm interested in STIKS or I'm interested in helping out, the folks online can put your email address in the chat and then we'll be in touch with you. How's that?
There's at least 4 people.
Oh,
Yeah,
super.
please. And
Super. And then Don has a clipboard, a really low-tech method of letting us know who might be interested. So later you can,
Yeah, so
sign up.
everybody in this room, please, if you're interested, just
okay,
talk
are we
to
ready for the
Dawn.
next slide?
We're
Next
ready
slide.
for the next slide.
Yeah,
It's your slide.
it's about kids. Yes. So we have a kids track at STIKS. It's as old as STIKS itself because the belief is that has been a family event, and grandparents come and bring their grandkids, parents come and bring their kids. And we know that, as Carl Anderson taught me, that we learn best through play. And so these kids learn, they learn about paddling, they learn about balance, and some of them choose to learn to roll through games that we play there. And I believe Elizabeth Draper will be helping with that this year.
Next slide, Jim. I brought my kids to STIKS every year, and they loved it. And if you over the years, people would bring their kids. It was fun to watch the kids grow up too at STIKS. And it's a great way for kids to have some enjoyment in what we enjoy so much. My kids always thought that kayaking was this kind of weird, boring grown-up thing, right? Not a kid thing, but they learned differently at STIKS, and they had a wonderful time there. So as Joanne mentioned, learning through games is one of the best ways to learn. And we don't only teach kids through games at STIKS, but there's adult games too. So we've already mentioned some of the Greenland games, learning how to do different roles, learning how to do the rope gymnastics. We also have different kinds of kayak races at STIKS, and we have dead fish polo, which is a lot of fun. It doesn't use an actual fish. No fish were harmed in this discipline whatsoever. You use a stuffed fish and you throw it back and forth on the water. It's a great way to learn, to really solidify the different strokes you're learning, the different kind of maneuvering techniques. And again, another great opportunity to learn how to roll, because a lot of collisions and a lot of getting off balance. And it's a lot of fun. Nothing as fun as kayak polo. And we're almost at the end here. Another tradition of STIKS, which we're going to be starting up again in 2025, is the film festival. So each year at STIKS, we encourage people to bring a homemade film, broadly speaking, on the topic of traditional kayaking. There's a lot of latitude here, believe me. Or you can actually make it at STIKS nowadays with GoPros and whatnot. Some people come up with little films at STIKS. There's always a wonderful prize, a very valuable prize. For the most of the years, we've given out the Golden Norsak to the film that was voted the best film. And that Golden Norsak, of course, was created by Don Beal. And I don't know if we're going to do that this year, but we'll see if Don is amenable to it. And you can see some of the existing films, the previous films that were entered into STIKS on the Kayak Pacific Northwest website. So we hope you go and take a look at that.
I think Mark Neiman Ross's video is on there.
Mark Neiman Ross is the Golden Norsak winner from, what year was that? What year?
1950.
Okay, next
It's an
slide.
absolutely hilarious film too. Please go see it.
So this is one of, now how many kayak symposia are there on the West Coast anymore? There's STIKS. And not only are we that, we are the traditional kayak symposium. It'll be happening June 6 to 8 at Vista Park in Skamakawa, Washington. We are partnering also with Columbia River Kayaking and Skamakawa Resort. We have a new general organizer. Her name is Shannon, and she's going to kind of keep us all rounded up and together. But we can't do this without help. So this is a community, and it is your event. And so we invite you to bring your ideas and energy and make STIKS what you would like it to be in the coming years.
And this is a nice shot of the area right adjacent to Vista Park in Skamakawa, Washington. So it's a lovely place to paddle. It's very bucolic environment, all kinds of opportunities for different kinds of paddling. And there's a nice campground there. There's showers there. There's little towns nearby that have opportunities for food and lodging, different lodging if you want it. it's a lovely place to paddle. I have mentioned here you could sign up to volunteer on the STIKS website. That will be true in a day or two. I didn't quite get my act together to get it up and running right now. Right now, if you're interested, again, talk to Dawn here or put something in the chat if you're online.
Oh.
And just a thank you slide. This could actually be quite a bit longer, and including some people in this room right here. But we want to especially thank Shannon of Columbia River Kayaking, of course, Dawn, Harvey Golden, Brian Schultz, Charles Condon, who I think may be online. Thank you, Charles. Charles has contributed pictures, which you've seen some on that slide and also on the website. And Ken Soon, who took the initiative on his own to intersect with this event and arrange a trip to visit Harvey and his wonderful kayak recreations.
Thank you very much.
That's it. Now, question.
Oh, yeah, sure. Yes.
Kayaking experience as a person or a child have to have. There are.
How much kayaking experience does a child or an adult need to have to come to STIKS? And Elizabeth is exactly right. Zero.
Nothing.
Zero.
It's also a lot. You can go there with never having sat in a kayak. We'll have kayaks. We'll have paddles. We don't necessarily have all the immersion gear you need. You need probably some of the proper clothing, which will be on the STIKS website as to what you need, but you don't need any skill set at all. It's a wonderful place to learn to kayak.
Yes.
Reservations to park. Is that part of registering, or do people make reservations on their own to Vista Park? How does that work?
Do people make reservations on their own to Vista Park? No. Well, normally you would, but for this event, we have reserved enough campsites for our group. And so you are invited to join us. We'll be tent camping together. We envision a potluck dinner the Friday night. So there'll be informal instruction Friday afternoon, and then formal classes on Saturday that you can join, and more informal. By informal, you come with what it is you'd like to work on, and we'll work on that as well on Sunday morning. If you choose not to tent camp with us, you're free to choose something different, but your registration includes a tent site.
Yeah, there are inns and Airbnbs up there if you want.
There's the Skamakaway Resort.
There's the Skamakaway Resort run by Shannon. So,
other questions? Soon to be determined. We have tried over the years, we try to be the most economical and make it the most affordable while not going into debt ourselves.
yeah, it's, as we've mentioned many times tonight, this is a volunteer effort. It's a community effort. We do not make a profit. Nobody who goes there gets paid to go. Nobody, the event itself doesn't try to make a profit. We're trying to essentially break even and giving the best experience for everybody who goes. So if you're going, you're part of the community. You're not funding some fancy thing. And I should mention, can I mention the oops?
Yeah, you should mention the oops thing.
I should have put it in the thanks. This is not only a collaboration with the folks we listed in our thank you slide. Oops has very wonderfully and decided that the attendance at some of the courses at STIKS will be able to get reimbursed through the class reimbursement. Am I describing that correctly? So get money back.
Makes it more affordable for you. Don't ask us about details of that. Yeah.
Questions on the chat. One
Okay,
from Peggy and Jeff are amazing at donating for silent auctions. They say, will you have a silent auction at STIKS?
We were talking about.
We were talking about that. So we've decided this year what? Oh, are we going to have an auction this year? We've decided this year we are going to have a raffle. And so perhaps if there's interest in an auction and someone wants to step up and organize it, that is certainly a possibility.
Yeah, in the past, this question references that the auction was a huge part of STIKS, and we had a very large auction with an auctioneer, and it's a ton of fun. But we're really concentrating on getting a great Sticks off the ground in 2025 and trying to streamline it a little bit. So as Joanne said, it takes a lot of lifting to get that auction going. You need people going out and getting things, and then you got to do the auction, and it's a lot of work. So potentially, but we'll certainly have a raffle, and that'll be fun
Yes,
too.
absolutely. You had a second question, and Sue had a question.
Think it might have been answered. Is there a website for sticks? Somebody said www.qajaq.
PNW?
Yeah, are we still doing, are we still broadcasting the slide?
Yeah.
No, well, yeah, it's Kayak Pacific Northwest Kayak,
QA,
PNW,
JAQ.
QAJ. This is a terrible way to do it. Is there a way for people who are interested to?
I think somebody responded.
Dawn has posted it correctly.
Okay,
That's the website. It's, if you go to the website now, you're more than welcome to go. You'll see some of it's a little out of date. I'm working as hard as I can to get it up to date, but the essentials are there.
Sue had a question. No,
No, it's just a good vibe, you feel and you support.
But you get the lovely magazine.
I think we're already working at keeping our costs as low as we possibly can. Yes,
So, when you want to try this out, and they don't have kayak row paddle, are we saying maybe 10 and kayak and paddle may be available to them?
I think yes, with a caveat. So we would need to know that ahead of time to make sure we have enough. We have, Styx has about 7 kayaks that are out for loan, and many of us bring our own second, third, and fourth kayaks in order to share.
And we'll have plenty of paddles.
We'll have lots of paddles.
But so I'd say the answer is a pretty safe yes. Of course, it would help to know in advance who needs a boat.
With paddles, what would you expect for erosion that time of year?
Wetsuit, booties, and a splash jacket. Might want a hood if you're doing rolling. Yeah,
Yeah, if people had zero, I mean, we're not going to have a big rack of dry suits.
no, we can't provide dry suits and wetsuits. You got to have your own. But we have tulips. Let me show, here, take that.
They can. Oh, seems fine.
So they asked, is this immersion wear? I think that was the question. And it's like, no, this goes over your wetsuit or dry suit and adds another layer of protection. But yeah, if you went in and you wet exited, you pull it off just like you pull off a spray skirt, right? And you'd get wet.
It provides a lot of
Warmth, a lot of warmth.
They're very warm.
And
Another
Oh.
chat question.
Any specific recommendations on types or sizes of kayaks to bring?
oh, great question. Any recommendation on sizes or types of kayaks to bring? Well, I think you would bring what you have, right? And if it doesn't work too well, maybe we can help you out with a loaner.
Yeah,
We
there's-
know if you don't have a bulkhead, you probably would want to have float bags, right? In your kayak. And when we teach the rescues class, you'll be learning about what happens if you don't have bulkheads and you don't have a float bag and how you can empty that kayak and rescue it. And that is a lot of fun. That class is called Beyond the T Rescue. And usually Don likes to teach that a lot.
And going, the answer we gave to Marty, there will be boats that you can borrow. And there's also a tradition of boat swapping at Styx. It's a great place to try other boats. It's really an open kind of environment, and we like to share. So you probably, if the question meant, can I bring my inflatable? You'd probably be better off either borrowing one at Styx or using one of the Styx boats than that. But other than that, almost anything. Basic sea kayak works 100%, yeah.
Yeah.
Trips, like on a new trips to Mount Point, or is it just within a few feet of the beach? Are you going around the island, within a mile, 4 or 5 miles?
Repeat the question.
So the question is, are we just staying within a few feet of the beach, or are we taking trips out there? And some of that depends on what your interests are. In the past, we have offered trips around. The STIKS reimbursement is for classes, and the details of that reimbursement, that would require you to successfully take the class and then get a receipt from Shannon that you completed the class, and then you would do your paperwork to get your reimbursement. I don't believe there would be reimbursements for trips around. But that's certainly like a possibility if there's a group who would like to paddle across the river, and we have a mentor who can lead that, we can do that, or around Price Island, or you want to practice your skills up the Skamakawa Creek, we can do that. Did that answer? Yeah. Mark. So we have paddles, and we have, yes, we have some boats for that are smaller for kid size. And we do, we have a very few tuliks for kids. We borrow those from Kayak USA, but they would need to have their own wetsuit.
Yeah.
What?
No.
No.
Kid-sized wetsuits you could get often used at most wetsuit stores very cheap. The kids grow out of them and they sell them very cheaply. So that'd be the best thing to do.
Other questions? So I'd like to say thank you very much for your patience and your interest, and hope to see you at